What if dinosaurs never went extinct? What would the world look like? How would humans fit into it? Okay? And how would they feel about us? So the first thing to talk about are the size and number of dinosaurs that lived on Earth. It is well known that some species of dinosaurs were huge, such as Dinosaurs, which could grow up to 40 meters long and weigh over 100 tons. But other dinosaurs were quite small, like the hummingbird-sized Archaeopteryx or the chicken-sized Compsognathus. In fact, many species of dinosaurs were around the same size as a modern-day chicken. They were just built differently with longer tails, bigger heads, and sharp teeth. Now, it is estimated that there were around 2 million living dinosaurs at the time of the mass extinction 66 million years ago. Give or take a few million. Most of them were medium-sized meat eaters like velociraptors or large plant eaters like the Hadrosaurus. However, because fossils don't preserve perfectly, we really have no idea how many different types of dinosaurs there were. For all we know, there could have been hundreds more species out there. So for this thought experiment, let us assume that there were in fact hundreds of species of dinosaurs that we have never found, and that there were at least 10 million dinosaurs in total, give or take a few million. But why do we keep saying give or take a few million? Okay, well, that's because scientists can only estimate how many dinosaurs there were based on the fossil record. Okay, this is very accurate since fossilization is a rare event and most dinosaurs died without ever becoming fossils. A better indicator of population numbers is to count the nests and eggs of dinosaurs. By studying these, paleontologists estimate that the late Cretaceous saw an estimated 360,000 nests per square kilometer, with each nest containing an average of 30 eggs. That's a lot of baby dinosaurs waiting to hatch. Now, taking this into account and assuming that there were 10 million dinosaurs on Earth, we get a much higher number than the previously mentioned 2 million. So we say, give or take a few million. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's continue with the video. Since dinosaurs evolved over a time span of almost 200 million years, it is only reasonable to assume that their extinction would also take millions of years. Since evolution happens in small increments over time and not in leaps and bounds. So let us give it 10 million years for the remaining Dinosaurs to evolve into smaller species that can survive alongside humans. In this new timeline, birds still exist, but instead of being small and flightless like ostriches, they are still able to fly. However, unlike their prehistoric ancestors, modern birds have feathers. Also, the smaller dinosaurs evolved to fill the niches left vacant by the larger ones. Now, this doesn't mean that big dinosaurs, like the Brachiosaurs, would immediately go extinct. But eventually, there would be too much competition for resources, and the smaller dinosaurs would outcompete them. Over time, the average size of dinosaurs would decrease until there were no more large dinosaurs. So, what would these smaller dinosaurs look like? For this, let's take a look at the animals that share a common ancestor with dinosaurs. Yes, we're talking about crocodilians. Today, crocodiles and alligators are the largest living relatives of dinosaurs. Some species can grow over 6 meters long, but there are also many smaller species like dwarf crocodiles. So let's use them as inspiration for our mini marsupials. Since birds still exist in this world, we will also take some inspiration from them. See, in the real world, birds are considered to be the direct descendants of theropod dinosaurs. These are the same dinosaurs that gave rise to famous species like Tyrannosaurus rex and Velociraptor. Over millions of years, these theropods evolved into modern birds. In this world, this evolutionary transition didn't happen, so birds evolved separately from dinosaurs. But still, we can use modern birds to get an idea of what smaller dinosaurs might look like. So, in this new world, instead of having a thick coat of scales, dinosaurs would have feathers, or at least downy feathers, similar to modern birds. This would make them better adapted to cold climates and wouldn't require any major changes to their anatomy. All other things being equal, These small, feathered dinosaurs will look pretty cute. Imagine a T-Rex with the size of a corgi, or a Triceratops with the size of a goat, or a Stegosaurus the size of a sheep. And don't forget about the tiny Ankylosaurus, a real-life version of the adorable dinosaur that you probably played with as a kid. However, cuteness is not always a good strategy when it comes to evolution. There are plenty of cute animals today that are still hunted by humans and other predators. So for our mini dinosaurs to survive, they would need to be even cuter. We're talking about animals with huge eyes, short snouts, soft downy feathers, and most importantly, they would need to be good parents. In the real world, birds are known to be very attentive parents who will do anything to protect their young. Humans also tend to favor cute animals, so we would probably react positively to these mini dinosaurs. However, other humans might try to hunt them for sport, just like they hunt big game animals today. This would force our mini dinosaurs to be even cuter and more dependent on their parents for protection. As a result, they would evolve into animals similar to modern-day kiwis. Just imagine a kiwi the size of a dog. This would make them extremely vulnerable to predators, so they would spend most of their time hiding in burrows underground. Meanwhile, other dinosaurs would evolve into animals similar to modern-day emus. Emus are flightless birds that can run at speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour and kick with the force of a mule. Their ancestors evolved from small proticals that flew over from New Guinea to Australia. Over time, they became flightless and grew larger until they reached their current size of up to 2 meters tall. So in this new world, instead of emus, we would have dino emus. Instead of being flightless, they would be burrow-dwelling animals with small forelimbs and huge feet for digging. Their long necks would allow them to reach deep into burrows to grab food or avoid predators. But what would these dino emus eat? That depends on where they live. If they live in open grasslands, then they would have to switch to a more omnivorous diet. In this case, they would compete with mammals like horses and deer for food. So they would need to be faster, smarter, or more aggressive. Maybe they would develop tusks and horns for fighting other herbivores, or maybe they would evolve into ambush predators. Either way, they would have to adapt quickly in order to survive. Now, let's imagine that our dinomus live in forests instead. In this case, they would have a lot more vegetation to eat and less competition with mammals. They could easily evolve into giant ground sloths that spend their days eating leaves and their nights hanging upside down in trees. However, they would need to be careful not to fall and break their necks. After all, they would be way heavier than any sloth today. Now, you might be wondering where the carnivores are in this new world. Well, smaller dinosaurs would fill the role of medium-sized carnivores, while larger dinosaurs would take the place of large carnivores. In other words, there would still be plenty of predators, but they would just be smaller than their ancestors. Think of it as the predator version of the miniaturized dinosaurs. These mini carnivores would look similar to wolves or foxes and would hunt in packs. Meanwhile, the larger carnivores would resemble bears or wolverines and would mostly be solitary. Both types of carnivores would have to be very stealthy in order to hunt prey animals that spend most of their time hiding in burrows. This would lead to an evolutionary arms race, with prey animals becoming even more dependent on their burrows and predators evolving to be even more stealthy. Humans would probably find these mini carnivores to be very cute and keep them as pets. Some of them would be trained to hunt rodents and rabbits, while others would simply be kept as companions. The larger carnivores would be too dangerous to domesticate, but humans would still keep them in zoos and wildlife reserves, where they could be admired from a safe distance. Overall, the world with smaller dinosaurs would be very different from the one we live in today. But these changes wouldn't be for the worst. Smaller dinosaurs would be more in tune with humans, and we would probably treat them better than their larger ancestors. In turn, this would give rise to new species of dinosaurs that are even cuter and more dependent on humans for protection. Who knows? Maybe one day we will live in a world where dinosaurs roam free, just like dogs.